Welcome to the TIFF press conference for Hysteria. I'm Maria Rowley, press conference manager. Just a couple of quick notes before we begin. We're going to have the cast stand on the podium for about 60 to 90 seconds of flash photography, and then we ask the photographers to move to the back. No flash during the press conference, and please keep the aisle clear for volunteers with microphones for questions. Members of the media, please stand and identify yourself and the name of your media outlet before you ask a question. And everyone, please make sure that your cell phones are turned off. The press conference is being streamed live at www.tiff.net/festival, and it is now my great pleasure to welcome the director and cast of Hysteria, as well as our moderator, Johanna Schneller. Thanks.
How are we doing? Good? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Well, that was fun. Thanks, guys.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming to the TIFF press conference for the film Hysteria. The movie that asks, how come we didn't know female orgasms were so hilarious before this? I'd like to introduce everybody on the panel. To my far right is Jonathan Pryce, who plays the doctor, who discovers that a woman's hysteria is much more easily cured than people might have thought in Victorian London. Hugh Dancy, to his left, plays the actual inventor of the vibrator. To his left, Maggie Gyllenhaal plays a spirited woman who lets the guys know that there's a lot more to us than they would like to believe. And to my immediate right is the director, Tanya Wexler. Welcome all. Thank you very much for coming. I suppose we should just start at the beginning with the genesis of the story. How did it come to you, Tanya, and what grabbed you about it?
It came to me in the... Can you hear me? Sorry, I was just saying to Maggie, it's kind of ironic that a movie about women's empowerment and the director loses her voice. So I apologize in advance. It came to me in a 2-page treatment from producer Tracy Becker, who had found the original material for Finding Neverland. And I had a bunch of kids, babies at the time, and it was going to take a lot to kind of shake me out of domestic bliss. And certainly the invention of the vibrator in Victorian England can kind of shake up anyone. So.
And how did you get your cast?
We were very lucky. We just started sending the script and begging.
Maggie, was there a particular thing that grabbed you with this character or the story?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in how the vibrator got invented, and I thought the script was great, and I did really like the character. I just, that's how it is with me. It's like I'll read something, and sometimes it'll just pull me, and I'll think, okay, I really have to do that. And that's how I felt about this when I read it.
Gentlemen, I need to ask you, what exactly were you doing down there during those scenes? It all looked...
Acting.
It all looked like... Yeah. No, but I wondered, I was just curious.
That's why I took the job.
Yeah. I was wondering if there was the particular conversations you and those actresses might have had. Now I'm going to be doing this, and just don't be alarmed. And
Well, no, we tried not to talk about it, I think. It was like the elephant in the room, that nobody was going to discuss it. But there
John,
wasn't...
you kind of got, almost mirroring the story, you kind of got a little repetitive stress injury, didn't you?
I did. I got a repetitive strain injury in my finger and actually took the skin off one of my fingers.
We had a sandbag.
It was a
under
sandbag.
The
It
tent.
was a modesty sandbag.
A modesty sandbag, which is rather gross.
It was
really.
odd in that there were quite a lot of scenes like that, almost like montage, and you get to the point where we knew the kind of how it worked, you know, and we'd say, yes, this way, ladies, you know, step up, and it did mirror the film in that respect.
Will the DVD extras include an instructional component in any way, you think?
I dread to think what the DVD extras will include.
Maybe in the sequel.
I think it would make
Yeah.
it very popular. I'd like to know about those auditions for the women. I presume most people here have seen the movie, but there's a montage of women after women after women sort of discovering the pleasure of what these doctors can bring them. And the auditions for that must have been sort of hilarious. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, actually. You know, pretty much all the women who are in the montage are kind of have their own little storyline and featured roles. So, you know, we did proper auditions, and actually the first round of auditions, I left it up to the actress if they wanted to play that bit or not. And it wasn't a test. I don't kind of go in for that kind of thing, but it was odd because the women who wanted to kind of go for it tended to be, I mean, what I'll say is every woman we cast in the first audition said, I'll give it a shot. So it was pretty funny, and they just kind of, Georgie Glenn, who plays Mrs. Parsons, who ends up with Jonathan's character, actually kind of cleared out the furniture in the audition room and got on the floor and kind of went for it. And we were all kind of like, right, this is the movie we're making, okay. You know, but it was for me, it was a big experience of that. I gave everybody, all the cast and crew, a kind of little bullet vibrator when we started, and it was a jokey kind of a present, and it was expensive. But
By the time I finished the movie, I had been sent like, I don't know, maybe 15 vibrators by different people in London with vibrator stores, and Tanya gave me a couple. You know,
that was,
so
was
that was
passing
the
along
beginning
the
of
15 that I got.
of a pleasant surprise.
It's been happening to me my whole career.
You were saying, Tanya, though, that it's like it's a growth market, the vibrator market now,
Yeah.
as it were.
So to speak. Yeah, no, I mean, I was reading, they did an article in the New York Times that we were mentioned as kind of this big shift culturally, and I know that a very large condom, no, that's really bad, a well-known condom manufacturer is now doing a kind of mass market vibrator for, you know, your local drugstore and CVS and Duane Reade in New York, and yeah, for like under $20, and their projections are gross sales will be more than the condoms.
Okay, so what do you think is happening culturally? It's interesting that, you know, your film is the comedic version of David Cronenberg's movie also deals with this period of hysteria and what people were thinking. Is obviously any historical movie has a contemporary counterpart to make it relevant. Do you think that there is a shift? Do you think that there's an openness in women's sexuality, a kind of rediscovery and something going on with this?
Yes.
And could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, you know, this is probably, if you're a woman on this planet, the last 100 years or so is probably the best time to be alive. And, you know, the movie is about a lot of things. I mean, mostly I think it's fun. That's kind of what we were going for. But in many ways, it's about, you know, kind of being able to choose your own destiny, whether you're the doctor or the patient, really. And I think that the more women can kind of make their own choices about anything, life, work, pleasure, the more we can enjoy ourselves.
I don't know. At the same time, you know, we all started talking about, you know, what they were doing with their hands, and everybody's giggling. And I remember when, I mean, I wasn't there for that stuff. We shot my stuff first, and then I left, and we were sort of saying, how are you going to do that? And we're all blushing and giggling about these women coming. And I guess I think, you know, there's a kind of interest in this movie, like, oh, this is about vibrators and women's orgasms. And I don't think people really do talk about it very much. And I think it does still make us kind of flushed and uncomfortable. And I think that's the truth, right? I mean, even if we're interested in it.
It's an ongoing process of figuring out what it's about. And in reference to the Cronenberg movie, it's kind of interesting that they're dealing with hysteria, but from even just in the little time shift between the two movies, it's completely different. It goes from, in this case, a physical, completely fabricated physical diagnosis to a, well, arguably kind of fabricated psychological diagnosis through to wherever we are now. But the one thing you can say is that that process of discovery is probably not over. But I don't actually think there is any particular great moment now. I just think we just happened to make the movie.
Yeah. But there does seem to be an openness in discussing it. I don't know if you guys all saw Kirby Dick's documentary, This Film Is Not Yet Rated, talking about the rating system rating movies with sex scenes much harder than movies with violence, and particularly scenes in which women climax, where seems to be the ones that automatically got an NC-17. Like, there's nothing scarier in the world than a woman experiencing sexual pleasure. And I think you're getting around it by making it a comedy, which is one way of dealing with it.
Well, I think what Maggie, I mean, they're both totally pinging on the thing that it is in a way the most normal thing in the world, and we still, I mean, I am the, what my friends call kind of prude perv, so I've like, kind of, talk about anything, and then I'll retreat into, my kind of 10-year-old self. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to culturally. And I do think that there is, there, at least vis-a-vis the vibrator, there's a bit of a zeitgeist shift. It's just become more mainstream. They're sold in malls now, and it's kind of out of the sex shop and into, as I said, the drugstore. But I think the thing I've really noticed is that, if there's any critique of the film, it's that it's not salacious enough. And I think to Maggie's point that, I wanted to have a bit of fun with it. I think we all wanted to enjoy ourselves, but, there's plenty of porn on the internet. And I think it's much more subversive to be able to make a film about the vibrator you can bring your mom to. Oh yeah, I have some sites. Yeah, it's okay.
We'll talk.
Does anybody have any questions out in the audience? Nobody yet? Okay, I'll keep going. Maggie, your character especially has to kind of walk an interesting tone, I think, because in the middle of all the comedy, she's saying some pretty trenchant things about what the expectations are for women and the limitations. So I wanted to know what kinds of thoughts you had about your character in that tone, conversations you and Tanya may have had.
Well, I guess I think a couple things. I think like the situation that's happening in the movie is so outrageous and ridiculous from our contemporary point of view that and also the things that Charlotte says are very, very simple politically, and they're things that we all can agree with and we all know now. So it's funny, I definitely felt like she could be as modern and as wild and as I didn't feel that she had to kind of be in the time she was in, because the perspective of the movie already is saying this is outrageous and this is ridiculous. So I wanted her to, the things she says are very simple. Women are equal, and we kind of all can agree with that now. Nothing she says is radical now, at all, really. But I guess, so I wanted her to be, I wanted those simple political things to be like the life in her body. Like, I wanted her to be fleshed and excited and happy and overwhelmed with a kind of passion for those things, as opposed to like just like a didactic, I didn't want her to be old-fashioned. I didn't care about that. I wanted her to be like a dervish, like alive, like a wild person who could have been from any time.
Yes,
she's not meant to be like a finger-wagging, school marm. I think she's the locus for female identification in the film, and so you want to feel like you like her and you want to be like her, and that's who I would have been right back then.
That's what you want to think you would have been. You know what I mean?
I may not have been brave enough.
I don't just mean you. I mean, like all of us, we kind of think we would have liked to been able to see things that way. But because of the perspective of the movie, which is a comedy, and it definitely starts out saying, this is nuts, there's no germs, and we think so differently now. I just felt like she could be kind of a magical person in the way that she says the things she says.
Yeah, the way she moves, she seems literally uncorseted in a very corseted age. Yeah.
She was corseted.
So corseted.
Yeah. But she's a lot looser.
But we did because Maggie came and she said, there's certain kind of wardrobe things I see, and we really kind of consciously cheated. Maggie's character is a progressive. Hugh's character, certainly in medicine, if not in life, is a progressive, and I think is, and Rupert's character also a progressive in science. And so we actually consciously cheated her costumes forward, a little bit and stuff to kind of give that sense of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys, do you find there's any help in the costumes for your characters? I mean, wearing all those clothes must have felt in the straitjackety.
That's a very interesting question to a man. Did my costume help me? It's very significant, isn't it, that we've sat here saying nothing while these two women just rattle on. It kind of sums the film up, really. The costumes, yeah, there's a bit of straight-laced Victoriana about getting in those costumes. And,
Can I just say no?
Yeah. Yeah, but it was more for the women. It really, those corsets do put you in the right place. I mean, it's, yeah.
There are some little
That was your
talismanic
corset.
bits of costuming sometimes that help you from the outside in find your, Hugh, what's the fun in playing somebody who's so buttoned up and then gradually letting us see more and more of him?
Sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of that.
What's the fun for an actor in like chart your course from going to, from starting in one place and ending up in another? What's the fun of playing the button down part?
What's the fun of the button-down bit? Well, I'm trying to remember. It's fun having somewhere to go, and there's a kind of a naivety to the character that's fun to play. The trick and the pleasure, but the difficulty was charting the course between the parts of the movie that are, that you have to take seriously, and the stuff that is more knockabout and farcical, and try and make sure that they're in the same film, Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I thought was going to be interesting about it when I got involved.
Okay, questions? Yes, please, in the front row. You can get the mic.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And talking about people's attitudes towards the film and possibly discomfort or intrigue, I wanted to ask you what was the most memorable reactions you got when people heard about this project?
They're wide and varied. It depends how you play it as well. I liked it when they put a little pause before they tell them actually what it's about. And then there's a pause while they take it in. Is that what he really said? And then there's usually nervous laughter. When I was coming through passport control here, the woman at the desk asked me what I was doing here for 2 days, and I said, film festival. Oh, which film are you going to see? And I said, well, I'm in one, thanks. And she said, oh, so what's it called? And I said, Hysteria. And she said, what's it about? So I thought that they might not let me in. But I told her, and she very straightly said, interesting, and stamped my hand, and that was it. But it does cause great differing reactions. I thought I was making a documentary. That's my problem with this film. There you go.
I know that this has happened. So I'd mentioned that I had given everyone on the film a vibrator, and both my producers and I have had the experience of going through checked luggage with like 20 or 30 vibrators in my carry-on, which is fascinating because sometimes now it's funny. It's in a way, even having made the film, it's just this massive conversation starter, and it is that nexus between what Maggie was saying, kind of people going tee-hee and people kind of going whatever, and but I'd gotten used to kind of going through, and then occasionally, in one case, Tracy went through the thing, and the guy goes, do you have 20 or 30 small electronic devices in your hand luggage? She said, yes. And I said, what is it? And she's like, vibrators. And the guy just was like, move along. So kind of people want to know and they don't want to know. They kind of, one of these.
Any memorable reactions for you, Jack?
Not especially. I think that that what you're saying is right, that it is a good conversation starter, as you would imagine. And the reason for that is that the most outrageous thing in the movie, more than the fact that there are vibrators or women on plinths or whatever, is the premise of the film. The source of all the comedy and the source of the more serious stuff is the fact that these medical men were seriously and without any irony, without any deception, diagnosing this non-existent condition and refusing and doing what they were doing manually, and totally failing to see that there might have been anything sexual about it, which is astonishing. And we're only talking, 130 years ago? So it's interesting explaining that to people and actually watching their reactions to that.
Maggie, any interesting reactions for you?
I've just been trying to figure out how, I was just noticing how you said manually. Like when I'm telling people what it's about and you sort of were like, and then they would, what word to use?
Yeah, there's a lot of euphemism and...
Yeah, I don't know. That's caught me up a little.
We were talking about the relevance and things, and I do think we're living in an age, obviously, where there's more access to pornography than ever, and it's sort of more of people think of it tend more on the male side, and I wonder sometimes if the female side of sexuality is lost in that equation. People think, oh, guys check in with porn every day at the office, it's just a thing they do, or whatever, And
They do?
Well, apparently the studies
the
are
office?
showing that everybody does check in with it way more often, and it's already in one generation, it's different from when you had to, like, go to the store and bring it home in a bag surrounded by your neighbors and stuff like that. And it can be much more private and therefore much more pervasive and stuff. But I'm wondering if, do you guys feel at all that the woman's side of the equation is lost there, and is this even making a comedy, making anything about it, helps with that conversation?
John.
Oh God, it's a huge subject, and I don't know how to answer it briefly. Really, I think you're talking about porn, but the availability of porn on the net.
Well, I am, but yeah. But we
Yeah.
don't. If you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to.
Not just
yeah.
that.
No, but I could hardly hear, so that's...
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I mean, the problem that there isn't the equivalent for women, I think, unless they watch
Is it a
porn
bit of a
on the
supply
net.
and demand issue? I mean, I think the net, if there's a way to make money on the net, people will find it. I think, well, I don't know. I don't know if women feel like, I don't know that, I mean, I
Yeah.
can only speak for myself, which I won't do at the moment.
But film itself, I mean, I do think, and this isn't so much about porn, but like in my experience, a lot of the movies I make have a lot to do with sexuality, and it's because I'm interested in sexuality, and so is everybody else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that film has been for me an opportunity to explore and think about sex as well as many, many other things. But I do think, like a sex scene, for example, it can be like a softcore porn-looking thing, which you see all the time, or it can be really an amazing opportunity for a different kind of acting and a different kind of communicating, which is what it can be in your life too. So I don't know so much about whether porn speaks to that, but I do think there are a lot of movies that do offer an opportunity to like see inside what's in a woman's mind sexually.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And
Yeah.
I think what distresses me about the availability of porn is it forms an attitude amongst young people, and I think it reinforces all those old stereotypes that this film tries to expose. And young men, boys, have I think a really unhealthy and a dreadful attitude towards sex and sexuality because of porn. And yeah, I could go on.
Yeah. I also think actually the other thing that, Maggie touched on is that I think women often get lost in the equation as a kind of general, not just about sex, both in getting this film made, right? We kind of came up against that. And, as
That's the censors calling, by the
yes,
way.
exactly. And, as we kind of tried to get the film out, made and out there, I realized, it seems like over and over again, the marketplace, for lack of a better word, discovers that there's this huge market for women who want to see movies that their experience is reflected in. And while I think a lot of women are interested in getting married, I think there are other topics that women are also interested in. And I think that this film is able to kind of be a bit of fun, have a bit of love and romance and intellect and all of it, and speak to kind of a lot of, I can't speak for all women, but a lot of women's taste. And I feel like every year we see, one or two breakout hits where women go back and back and back, and I don't think it's just because women have a repetition compulsion. I think there's not much available. And I think that this is something the flight attendant on my flight, I went at 6:30 in the morning, and so basically a private plane. I wasn't on a private plane, I was on a commercial plane, but no one was on it. And it was lovely. And I showed her the trailer, and she said to me, I have to see this movie. I have to see it, and I have to bring all my friends. And I was like, that's great. And she goes, no, I have to see it. And I was like, okay. And I mean, it was lovely, but I realized there's a real appetite to see your experience, or at least, kind of some version of your story reflected back. And I think right now a lot of women's experience is underserved.
Question?
Hello, from Mexico. This question is for Maggie. You and your husband both are actors. Do you share opinions about the projects that you do, and what did he say about this film?
Yes, we do. My husband and I are both actors. He was saying, we do. We actually did, we've done 2 plays together, and I think, and we just did one this winter. And I think doing that has, being on stage with him night after night, we both kind of went, I guess we realized we really, really respect each other, and I really respect his opinion and his ideas about my work, and I think he respects mine. And when I run into trouble, or even when I've had a great day, I often come back and tell him about it. And I think that you can be married and not really be able to communicate about your work. I think you can have a great marriage and have your work be separate. But in our life, it just happens to be that we think very, very similarly about our work, and I find him to be so helpful to me all the time. And about this movie, I mean, he's definitely not a husband who's like, you can't make a movie about a vibrator, or don't take your clothes off or something. I don't think he would have married me. But he was there in London, and he was great, I mean, he's great.
Any other questions out there at the moment? Yes?
Sorry, last question. Tanya, I'm Anne Charon from Agence France Presse, the French newswire. I thought that you've been studying psychology, and I wonder if it helped you, and how did it help you for the movie?
So she was saying my first degree is in psychology, my undergraduate degree. I think I was just very familiar with, when the idea was presented to me and the title was Hysteria, I'd already been pretty familiar with Freud and that era. So in that way, the learning curve was more quick. And and my undergraduate thesis was on, I guess it helped a lot, gender stereotypes. And so I guess maybe this is part of where I was going and I didn't even know it.
Questions? I wanted to ask you about casting Maggie in the sort of lone Yank in a bunch of Brits. Did you want that kind of, almost subliminal new world quality to her character, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was not, I think we looked at both British and American actresses, but it was the only role that we really entertained having a non-Brit in. It was really important to me that it was, very authentically British film. I felt like the juxtaposition of, as you say, the button-downness of the Victorian era at that time, and the treatment that was going on. To me, it's where all the humor kind of grew out of. And I think, when Maggie talked about her character kind of being a bit magical, I think But the other side is that I'd already seen Nanny McPhee do, which Maggie did this kind of perfect British accent, and so much so that when she was on the set, the crew, a couple people thought she was British, and only and then she started speaking American, so to speak, realized. So it was important that she was also authentically British, but I think in terms of the subliminal psychology, that sense of being an outsider was very important. So.
Anybody else?
I've got my revenge on the Americans playing Brits, because I'm at the moment playing the President of the United States of America.
I would vote for you.
Ultimate.
I wanted to ask the actors one last question. Did you guys do research into the Victorian era, into Hysteria, into any of this, and did any particular detail from that surprise you?
Research of the
era of Hysteria, of medicine at the time.
Are we supposed to say yes?
No.
Do we get in trouble?
Yeah, I did lots of research. I was with this project for over 4 years.
And you spent all that time researching.
Yeah. And initially, I'm a parent, and my youngest child is a girl, and she was, when the project first came to me, Phoebe was 16. And I wanted to turn it down, as I was quite reluctant to play this man who would be on film doing what he's doing, and Phoebe and her friends going to see it, and she being the butt of a lot of humor, and I thought, I really can't do it because of her. And it took so long to get made that by the time my agent called and said, right, it's a go, and I said, oh, great, let's do it. And she said, oh, hang on, what about Phoebe? And I said, Phoebe is now 20, and I said, she's over that now, don't worry. And she's in the film.
She's my legs.
If you see the trailer, Phoebe is Maggie's legs.
Riding on a bicycle.
Yeah.
Like when we
Which
had
is a
to
very
shoot
desirable
really
role, by the way. A lot of people were fighting over
I
that
was
role.
very pleased to have Phoebe be my legs.
She's got some nice gams.
Yeah.
Anything juicy you turned up in your research?
Oh, research, that's where we started, yeah. No, not so much. I mean, I guess I've played characters in this era before. I know enough about, the differences between then and now that I did not plunge into months of reading, I must admit.
But it was what you do find with research. It was a huge surprise to find the actual, what went on at the time, and the machines, the early vibrators that were invented. Just extraordinary things.
It was only halfway through the movie that I learned I was playing a real person.
With a hybrid of a couple.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he was about 50, and et cetera, but I should have not really announced that in the press conference, but it's too late now. Forget that.
That was a joke.
I did the narration for this documentary about sexuality afterward, and I went to the sex museum and saw all these old vibrators. Was the vibrator that they were using, it was kind of like a pretend one. I mean, it was a sort of...
It was kind of a hybrid design of a couple of, actually 20s used.
But they look so much like that. I mean, they look like a hairdryer, like a little nub on the end.
Makita power drill.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
You gotta put
I
your
have one
phone-
research anecdote, which is that, so I did a lot of, same thing, going to the Wellcome Collection in London, and, I learned lots of horrific stuff about Victorian medicine for another time. But when the writers were writing the script, and there was kind of always lots of jokes and kind of unavoidable puns and things. And but they were joking as they were doing it. They were like, I think they live in Idaho, in the mountains, kind of somewhat near Jackson, Wyoming, and they said, I think there's women all over the valley doing research. So.
Oh, I just remembered. I went to the Sex Museum in Shanghai.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's a revelation. What's that? Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I recommend it.
Is that before or after the film?
No, it was before the film.
Okay.
It's just hundreds of artifacts that you have to take them at their word that they were used in some form of sex, because a lot of them, you look at them and you think, that's just a rock. I don't see how, just anatomically, And that's the spirit I think I brought to the movie.
On that note, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.